All right, guys. Welcome back to another episode. Today, I have a special guest. We have Milt Colegrove. He is the partner of Meyer and Colegrove. He is one of the owners, a attorney, real estate attorney. And so I wanted to bring him on, talk to him about his story, how he got started. You guys know I love origin stories and how everybody got started, and of course ask some questions, get some hear what any advice he wants to hand out and give out, and of course introduce you guys to Milt. So take it away. Start there, Milt. So tell us about you and how you got started in real estate or as a lawyer in real estate.
Sure. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. So my origin starts in a cold winter day in Chicago. No, I won't go that. I won't go that far back. So I went to grade school in a building that went from kindergarten to eighth grade in a suburb outside of Chicago,
Mhm.
and we published like a yearbook. Back in those days, they were probably just mimeograph. They weren't really fancy back in the 70s. And we were asked in eighth grade what you wanted to do when you grew up. And
Mhm.
I said attorney.
Oh,
And
wow.
so from eighth grade, I've wanted to be an attorney. And so it's something I've always wanted to do, probably because I watched Perry Mason and all those things and thought that was really cool. And so my family left Chicago area and ended up in Las Vegas. I have two much older sisters, 20 and 22 years older than I, that had been in Las Vegas since the 50s. And so my dad wanted to retire in Las Vegas. So I followed him along and went to the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. And again, knowing that I wanted to be a lawyer, I took political science classes because that's the thing you do,
Mhm.
right? At least it was back then. You take political science classes. And after my first semester, my father sat me down and said, "Son, I appreciate your desire to be an attorney, but what are you going to do with a political science degree if you don't go to law school or if something happens and that doesn't work? I mean, there's not a lot of career opportunities probably in political science." So he convinced me to change my major to business with an emphasis in real estate, mainly because my father, all his life, as long as I can remember, was a loan officer in a savings and loan when we had savings and loan. That just tells you how old I am.
Mhm.
Um, and I would go out with him on appraisals and things of that nature. And I kind of understood the loan process and stuff. So real estate was always kind of fascinating to me. So I made the change in major and graduated from UNLV. And then got enrolled and was admitted into a law school in Northern California because at the time the state of Nevada did not have law schools. You
Mhm.
had to go outside. So this particular law school in the Sacramento area had Nevada classes. So they knew, I mean, California knew that they were going to get Nevada students. So there was Nevada water laws and things of that nature. Well, I had to work almost full time to go, and it just didn't really work that first semester for me. I wasn't really successful, and so I was given the opportunity to come home, keep my place at that law school, and then raise some money so that I wasn't going to have to work full time. So I did. I came home, and I was given a position in a corporate entity that at the time was the oldest surety and fidelity bond company in the nation. So surety and fidelity bonds are like bonds that general contractors may ask their subcontractors for, or like in Texas, if you want to be a licensed motor vehicle dealer, you have to put up a bond. It's there to protect the third party and things of that nature. So I got a job as an underwriter for them, and young lady started working there shortly after I did, who was in the steno pool. And this again just tells you how old I am, right? This was typewriting and
Mm.
carbon paper kind of things, right? And you would dictate your letters in a tape recorder and hand the tape over to them, and they would um, dictate and type your letter, and so you would get it back. Well, this young lady had a tendency, and she always kills me when I say the story, but she had a tendency of forgetting the E in Colegrove. She would always spell it Colgrove. So in my wisdom, the only way I realized that she was ever going to overcome that problem was to marry her. so that for the rest of her life she would have to spell that name correctly. So
We're gonna solve this right here.
yeah, this is the easiest way and the shortest term way of solving this problem, right? And so we got married and then began having children, and the opportunity of immediately going back to law school kind of vanished economically and everything. And so eventually the company I worked for had come to the idea that they were going to start consolidating things. So they decided the first office that they had that they were going to consolidate was the Las Vegas office. And they came to me and said, we have an assistant branch position in the Dallas, Texas office. Would you and your family like to go to Dallas? Well, my father was a Texan. He grew up in Houston. And so it was just an interesting opportunity, and I didn't really have a lot of other avenues at the time. So I moved my wife and my, at that time, only child to Dallas. We got here in 1986 in Dallas. And then years went by, probably 8 or 9, and I continued to watch the company start consolidating branches. They were still doing that. And the only one was left was the Dallas one in the home office, which was in beautiful, sunny Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And I saw the writing on the wall, and I said to myself, well, my goodness, I've been doing this for 18 years. What am I going to do? And so I had this random thought one day. I picked up the phone and called Texas Wesleyan University, which is at the time was the only place in the Dallas-Fort Worth area that had a night program for law school. And I called in early August, and they said, well, we still are taking applications for this upcoming fall year. This would have been 1995. I'm almost 35 at the time then. And they said, we still have some space to do this, but you've got to take the LSAT. And there's only one left. And it happens to be 3 days from now in Tyler. So I quickly send in my money and get it and drive to Tyler and sit down cold and take the LSAT and come back and send my paperwork in to Texas Wesleyan, and must have done well enough for them to care, right? But they called like the Wednesday before the week of starting, so it's like 5 days before the first night class.
Yeah.
And they said, hey, great, but because you got in so late, we don't have any openings for this fall, but you are guaranteed for the fall of 1996 if you'd like to put us on the list. I went, well, sure, I can manage in a year without this. Now, at this point in time, I'm still managing now this branch, and I have 4 children by this time. And then 2 days later on Friday night, like at 6 o'clock, they call and go, oddly enough, 3 people have dropped, and you can start law school on Monday. I go, well, okay, this is going well, right? And so I say to my dear wife, I said, hey, I got in, I can start Monday if you think you can manage this. I mean, I'm going to be working full time still, right? And we still have to pay the mortgage. My wife's not working, and there's 4 kids, and can you manage that? And she said, well, let's try it. If I can, I'll let you know. And so we come from a fairly strong religious family, and I basically made this promise. I said, I will never study on a Sunday if you can just get me through this 4 years, which the night program was a 4-year program. I will never study on a Sunday if you'll just watch over me. And so I started that Monday, and we continued on, and we decided to shorten some things by taking some summer classes. We were very active. We were very active parents, and so we went to our kids' everything, right? Soccer, everything. And so there were some Saturdays in which I would be watching my boys play soccer and have flashcards with me, and I would be studying as I was yelling at the poor 13-year-old assistant on the side who didn't know how to call offsides, right? And so here I am, doing this, and I'm probably 300 feet away from him and saying, how could that possibly be offsides when I'm not even in a position to make that call? But
did you, instead of yelling at him, were you like, I object?
yeah, that would have been the way. I'm practicing.
The other refs like, sustain.
I'm practicing, right? So we did that, and so we made it through 3.5 years, and graduated. Again, not being as smart as this sounds, but I ended up third in my class at night school.
Yeah.
But again, I can tell you that it had very little to do with me, but the promise that I made that said I wouldn't study on Sundays, which I never did. There's just a lot of great stories. One was I had, again, very active parents, never missed any real big activities for my kids. And I have a son that was born in September. I'm probably 2 weeks into law school. And at this time, the law school is located in a very old building, just right next to the old Cowboy Stadium in Irving.
Mm-hmm.
And I leave my office realizing that I'm going to miss my son's birthday party probably for the first time, right? And I'm driving going, I'm, again, talking to myself, not really, but, talking out loud saying, I'm not sure I want to do this. I mean, I don't know if I want to miss these special events of my children just to do this, right? And so I drive in, I get to the parking lot of the law school, and there's no cars there. Thinking, well, I hadn't gotten here this early, or what happened? And so I park my car, I walk to the front door, and there's a note on there that said, all classes have been canceled this evening due to a gas leak. And so I get in my car and I drive home, and I get to my son's birthday party. And that was pretty much my 3.5 years of law school was guided like that. I was truly blessed in that regard. And so you go to law school thinking that you are going to practice because that's what you want to do. And then life doesn't ever have you practice. Very few, I think, people who go to law school really practice what they think they are going to practice. Now, I did know one thing for certain, that I did not want to be a litigator. I had no desire to be in front of a court. I didn't take any trial prep courses, no trial advocacy courses, nothing.
Yeah.
I do not have the personality to be a trial attorney. My law partner, Greg Meyer, who I tease all the time, the difference between a transactional attorney, which is me, and a litigation attorney is that I walk by a mirror and keep walking. He walks by a mirror and looks at it and goes, that's not bad looking. Right? So to all the litigators who may ever listen to this, I apologize. I don't really.
I love it. That's funny.
But it does take a special personality to be a litigator, and I just don't have that. So I'm still working for the same corporate American, gig that I had when I passed the bar. And I said, well, I could move to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and be in this company's legal department if I wanted to be. But I didn't really have a desire to live in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And we had made a home here in Dallas, and my kids were, we've been in the same house, same city for 36 years. I mean, so the colony, Texas, is where we wanted to continue to live. And so I was given an opportunity to go work for a firm in downtown Frisco. It was just the gentleman and another associate. And so I jumped ship, which was really scary because I was used to 20 plus years of making sure that there's a check on the 1st and the 15th. And this attorney, even the kindness of his heart to even give this guy, in his late 30s, an opportunity to practice law was kind of like, eat what you kill, right? You're going to go out and bill and collect, and you're going to get a percentage of that, which was very, very scary for someone with 4 kids and a house and those kind of things. But unfortunately, he had a very large client who the client had a tragic accident that forced the owner of the law firm to kind of go run this client. So he left the law firm to me, his father, and another attorney. So it was really like throw yourself into the deep about not only trying to practice law, which, by the way, you don't know what to do when you leave law school. I mean, they tell you that, right? But law school is a means to get to the bar exam, but not to practice law.
I've heard that so many times. We had Scott Horn on one day, and he was like, he said the same thing. He's like, well, once you get out, they don't tell you what to do.
No.
Good luck.
No, right? There's not.
Hit you on the button.
Exactly. I mean,
see you later.
I do hundreds. I mean, I must be registered agent for 800 plus entities in Texas. There is not a how to set up a limited liability company class in law school. Or none of that. I mean, none of the things that you would practice per se. I think litigators are better prepared. There are trial advocacy classes. You go through fictitious trials and things, and And so they're much better prepared than us transactional people.
Hmm.
One, because it's just difficult, I think, from a schooling standpoint, to train transactional people. You just have to kind of be hands-on and jump in. And so that, unfortunately, was me. And so um, I was doing everything I could to bring in business. And of course, the attorney had a reputation in the area. So there were clients that were coming in and needed some transactional stuff, which I was able to do. And then one day I went to the owner and his father and said, Frisco's growing. We really need to figure out how to get into the real estate side of the law. I said the one way that I know for certain to do that would be to potentially start thinking about doing some real estate closings in the office. Let's find a title company that would be willing to make an arrangement for us. And I didn't know about what fee attorneys were and things of that nature, but again, you grow into that. And so I reached out to Alamo Title through some other connections that I had already made, and signed up as a fee attorney office for Alamo Title. And so we started doing some closings and things of that nature. I knew that I eventually wanted to just run my own place. I mean, I was not one who's going to, I was too old to be an associate at a downtown firm that, made you work 110 hours a week and things,
Yeah.
right? I mean, by this point in time, I'm almost 40, and I'm going, I got my kids. I don't want to do that. I just don't. And so I let him know that I'm leaving to start a firm with a buddy that I went to law school with, and he was going to do family law and a little litigation, and I was going to do transactional, and we did. We jumped ship, opened up an office at the what was at the time a very beginning area of the Frisco Plano area. It was
Mhm.
at 121 in the tollway.
Yep.
121 at the time was still just a 2-lane highway. It hadn't been really made into what it is now. And so,
Was IKEA there, or they were just
oh
building it?
no,
Not,
yeah, this
not
is
yet.
this
We're
is
still,
pre-IKEA. This
because
is
IKEA was one of the first big ones to show up
yeah.
there.
I think
It was coming
I'm
in.
trying to remember back then. I think Stonebriar had been built,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that was the big turning point for Frisco, was winning the Stonebriar. Plano wanted it on the other side, just the opposite, the south side of what 121 is now. They lost and Frisco won, and that's how Frisco boomed into what they are because of the Stonebriar Mall. It was there, but it was just the beginning of that intersection now, which has got, we moved into the Granite Park complex, which at the time only had 2 buildings.
Mhm.
Now I think they're building 8 or 9 there, so they've grown much bigger.
Yeah.
And so we practice. And at the time, when you are a new law firm, you take on anything. If there's a checkbook or a credit card in their hand when they walk in the front door, it doesn't matter if they said, "Listen, I have a Russian international contract to sell beans. Will you take it?" We'd go, "You betcha." Right?
Yeah.
We'll figure out how to learn Russian. Right? I mean, you do anything at that time because you are trying to make money. Right? I
You're
mean,
surviving.
yeah,
It's
exactly.
the beginning of the business. You have to
Exactly.
survive.
You do anything. And so, as luck had it, I got a call from a young lady who was the executive assistant for a gentleman who said, "Listen, we are a startup open MRI company,
Mhm.
and my boss has got a legal issue in the East Coast, but he's going to be expanding here in Texas and wants to meet with somebody." I said, "How'd you get us?" "Well, I found you on the web. That's the only connection." So I met with this gentleman and started representing him from a transactional standpoint, opening up all of his MRI facilities. And I made a referral to him for a stronger litigator than my partner.
Yeah.
He at the time, that partner at the time was not a big litigator. This was going to be a heavy duty matter. I met an older gentleman who's been a mentor for mine since I started practice, and he handled that, but I handled this gentleman's transactional work. And he went from one facility to 30 facilities and then expanded in different areas of that medical area, in invasive pain and all that. And so many years ago, he sold that company for in the $70 million range.
Mm.
Right. So he had done very well for himself. And that client really sustained us for a long time.
Yeah.
But I took the idea of being a fee attorney office to the new firm of that we had started, and did that, and then got a better offer from another title company and moved our fee attorney office to that. And then one morning I woke up and said, this seems pretty easy. Why don't I open up my own title company?
Yeah.
Why am I only getting a certain percentage of these premiums that I'm doing? Because we're doing everything, right? Other than underwriting, which as an attorney, I understand. I get the gig. We're closing, we're funding. My wife is now in the office working for us at a highly paid rate of 0, right?
That's how the wife starts. Misty started there too.
Yes, right. And so I said, let's start a title company. So I go through the process, figure out how to do that, get some investors, and we start a title company. And then I realized the paperwork involved and the regulations. The Texas Department of Insurance is extremely protective of the consumer when it comes to everything, but title companies are audited all the time and get dinged for little things because the Texas Department of Insurance wants to make sure that people are treated fairly. I'm saying all this nicely in case someone from the Texas Department of Insurance ever listens to this. I won't use the phrase I used off mic. So they're very protective, and I just said, wow, this is not fun, because I was spending 98% of my time running the title company and not practicing law and not really generating what I wanted to do, and said, all right, this is not what I really wanted. I mean, I know the money could potentially be good, but I don't know if you noticed this, but there's a title company on every other corner.
Man,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, a title company, a dry cleaners, and a pizza. They kind of like all go in the same spot, right?
So I got to ask, did you own a pizza and a dry cleaner?
No, I wish I had. But so I just went, this isn't going to go. So I went back to the fee attorney aspect of things for a while, and then ran into a gentleman. I can't even tell you how I met Mark Walker, who was the owner and president of Texas Pioneer Title. I can't even remember how I met Mark or how I was introduced to him, but he said, I don't really want you to be a fee attorney. I just want you to be a marketer for me. I want you to send all your real estate things to me, and I will pay you for doing that. And if you want to close some things in your office, that's fine. Your wife can continue to kind of be that escrow officer. But I don't want you to fund things in your office, which was kind of like that line of when you were a fee attorney office and when you're not. If you're handling the physical funds of a closing, you have to be that fee attorney office that has a licensed escrow officer and a specific account and stuff. Because let's not do this. Let's make your life easier. And so that's been probably 12 years since I started the relationship with this particular title company, and it's just grown. And my oldest son did the same thing I did. He got a job at this title company. I introduced my son to him. He was really kind of into the real estate thing, and became involved with Texas Pioneer Title, and woke up one day and said, hey, Dad, I'm going to follow in your footsteps. And I said, no, there were a lot of footsteps, son.
Slow it down.
Let's clarify exactly which of those footsteps you are going to follow. And he said, I'm going to go to law school at night. UNT, University of North Texas, has just opened up another night program that's in downtown Dallas. It's like year 2. I'm going to get in. I'm going to go in evenings. We're going to do this. I said, okay. So he too followed that same path, working full time, and that time having 2 children of his own. And then he graduated, and he passed the bar, and has become kind of like this title company's, Texas Pioneers, general counsel, head of exam underwriting kind of thing. And so it's very nice. He's very talented and very knowledgeable of the title industry. But I tell clients, I said, the advantage that I have is if I have a transaction that's got some oddity to it, I just call them up and say, son, I know there's problem A on this title commitment, but if you'll recall, you want your mother and I to watch your kids this weekend. And if you want that to truly happen, you'll figure out how to solve problem A for me.
It's solved fast.
Right. I've never actually ever said that to him in reality, but it makes my investor clients happy. And so we have had that. And the nice thing about them is, there are title companies Rightfully so. I understand why. But there are title companies who are the mindset that if it does not fit in this perfect box, they don't want to underwrite it. They don't want to take the risk,
Hmm.
right? Title companies are probably the most risk adverse group of people you will ever meet in the real estate industry, right? They never want a loss, even if they know they have the statute there to protect them, and the statute allows them to make decision A. If they think there's a chance that they'll be sued and they have to prove that they were right, they don't want the risk.
Yeah.
And so, as when you represent as many investors as I do, you can't have that happen. You need people who are going to be more flexible on seller financing with a wrap, or you know, assignments, or when when the Texas series statute came out and people were, I mean, you had to have somebody who was willing to kind of learn that and come along and grow with you in that. And Mark Walker has always been one who has been investor friendly and was more willing to take the risk if it was a logical risk. He wasn't foolish
Yeah.
and going to do something, but he knew there was an opportunity. If we could do some things to make it even less of a risk, he was even more favorable of that. And so that's why it's worked for so very long. Um, Before the federal government did Dodd-Frank and and messed up seller financing, we did 22, 25 a month because seller financing, even with a wrap back then, was just such a popular way for new investors to get into the marketplace. And then you had those investors who screwed things up, right? Like everything, you get the bad
The
apples.
lease options and
Well, yeah, right. So
yeah.
you get people who did things improperly and didn't. They disappeared after a couple of months. They couldn't get a tenant, and they just walked away, and they didn't bother to protect it. And so I understand Dodd-Frank. I understand the state statutes that have been implemented, right, to protect seller financing with a wrap and limit seller financing. And pretty much, I don't know why the Texas legislature just doesn't admit the fact that they don't want lease options or contract for deeds in Texas, right? I mean, because the
Yeah.
statute is so severely negative towards the sellers of those transactions that I won't even draft them. I mean, I'd say to the client, the opportunity for you to screw this up is so incredibly easy,
Yeah.
and the penalties that go along with it, let's just not do them. We'll find other ways to get you to your final conclusion. We can avoid lease options and contract for deeds. I mean, they're still out there. I know that there's still people do them. I just don't ever want my people to be forced to have to live by that. So, so having a title company that I have worked with for as long as I have be there for me has been very advantageous. And so a lot of my initial clients were single family home people. Those are the easiest investor clients to start doing business with, right? Because
Yeah.
there's more of them in different ways. And so we did a lot of that, and we did asset protection for them. And back then, prior to 2009, if somebody came to you and said they had, 8 to 10 rental properties, what's the best way to protect them? You'd have to say, well, if you're made of money, we can, put each one of those in their own single limited liability companies if you want, and pay for all the filing fees that go along with that. Or we can kind of look at them and try to balance them out, and maybe only do 2 companies, 3 companies, put them all, kind of blend them up and stuff. Until 2009 came, and we passed the statute regarding the Series LLC.
Yep.
And if you don't mind, we'll talk about those a little later, because
Yeah.
I love them, but they have some problems that need to be fixed. And so at the same time, I again, we're still a fairly new firm. That partner has left, and I go it alone for a little while, and then I get introduced to my current partner, Greg Meyer. We're both of the same faith, and we had lunch together, and he's kind of like out on his own, but he hates the business side of the practice of law. He just wants to practice law.
Mhm.
I go, well, that's convenient, because I ran a corporate entity for a long time, so I don't mind the business side of things. So why don't we get together? So over lunch, we decided we were going to start this firm, and like within a week, we are together. We've created a new firm and have gone on, and we have never had a written document to define our practice
Yeah.
as to how things are done. We've just done it, right? And it's been 15 years now, and it's never.
You're yin and yang.
Yes,
You do
I mean,
one thing, he does
right.
the other, so
Yes.
it makes sense. But if you were both of the same people,
Right, it would have been a problem.
Yeah.
An extremely talented litigator at what he does. The vast majority of what he does is representing property management companies in Texas.
Hmm.
He does a lot of eviction work for those property management companies, which has been chaotic over the COVID time period and everything. But we needed business, and so I joined. So I can't even remember what it was. Prepaid Legal Services. I don't even know if Prepaid Legal Services is still around. If they are, I don't think it's by that same name. But
Is that ever worth? I gotta ask. You see that stuff? I'm like, is it ever worth? Or are they really worth what they're worth? I've never. I've just over the years, I've got prepaid legal services. I know that became a big thing years and years ago.
And
I don't hear much about it now.
I think they've changed the name. I don't think they're called Prepaid Legal Services anymore. But what it was that an employer would buy this as a benefit for their employees.
Yeah.
Right. And certain things were automatically covered. Right. Everybody could get their own will from prepaid legal services and things of that nature. But at the same time, if there are things that you wanted to do that were beyond that basic plan, you would be referred to an attorney who agreed to reduce his rates by 25%.
Gotcha.
And so we as a law firm, it didn't cost us anything to sign up. And so we signed up and we got a lot of smaller clients and things of that nature. But fortunately, I got a gentleman and a lady who were not married but became partners in multifamily out of California who said, listen, we've gone to a couple of seminars and we want to get into the multifamily area and we want to do it in Texas and we need legal counsel. And again, they did that and they grew from their first multifamily to like their 18th multifamily, in so many years. And then they split and are continuing to grow on their own. So that was my initial introduction to multifamily and syndication. I mean, they were syndicating, right? Now, I'm not an SEC attorney, and so the role would be the SEC attorney would handle everything up to the private placement memorandum, which is the document that is created by an SEC attorney for the spearheader of that syndication to hand out to all the potential investors, right? Mm-hmm. You spend a lot of money, and again, I'm SEC attorneys. I apologize. I'm only kidding when I say this, right? But you spend a lot of money to have them draft a document that says on every other paragraph, you could lose all your investment. Right? And so it will talk about, hey, this is a 85 unit. It's located here. It has a pool. It has a clubhouse, and you can lose everything. And we are expecting rents to be so much, and there are so many 4 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, and you can lose everything. Right? And so the document goes on like that. And the reason for that was that if one of those investors came back and said, I didn't know I could lose everything, the guy could go,
can you read?
Yeah.
It's on every single page.
You just signed the subscription agreement that said you were given this private placement memorandum, and guess what? It says it everywhere. And so those guys, get the private placement memorandum and help those individuals raise the funds. Mm-hmm. I went from the LOI to the contract all the way to closing. So I handled the closing aspects of it and dealing with lenders counsel saying, this is everything we need in order to approve the loan and get us through any negotiations with buyer or seller, depending on which side of the coin we're on, based on certain dollar amounts of the loan. Lenders would ask what was called an opinion letter, and it was from the buyer's counsel, and it's usually like 10 or 11 pages long. That basically you are saying as counsel for the borrower / purchaser that you've reviewed all the documents that these people are going to sign, and they are valid in your state, and they have all the legal necessities to be able to execute these documents, and the person who's going to execute them has the authority to do so, and all this stuff. And so they're putting a little burden on you as the law firm to prevent your client from ever saying the person who signed these didn't have the authority to do that, because then they're going to go, well, great, but now your counsel has issued an opinion letter, right? So it's a cumbersome thing to have to draft, though most lenders like Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac have their own formatted forms. So you just fill in and change each one based on that particular criteria, but the burden is still on you as a firm that you're guaranteeing this, right? And so, when you're talking 22, 25, $30 million loans, that's a huge burden. So we would start writing opinion letters, obviously, for these files. And so we would do them. And then, like, in the real estate industry, right? If you get your name with somebody and they just pass along, and that's really kind of how we grew our firm, was just from referrals of people going, if you need a multifamily transactional attorney in Texas, call Milt Colegrove. He's done them for me, kind of thing, right?
Oh.
And this gentleman who was his name is Vinny Chopra. He's out of California. Has written books on syndication. Has his own podcast. Does a lot of training. Now is in the assisted living marketplace. Is in the hotel marketplace along with his multifamily. The most positive individual you will ever find. Has just grown tremendously in the real estate market, but he's never shy about complimenting those of his team that helped him get to where he was, from one multifamily to the multimillionaire that he is now. And so I get a lot of referrals from out of state people buying in Texas multifamily, which for a long time, that was it. I mean, California, how surprisingly, right? A lot of California people would come here in Texas and buy multifamily. And so that was very kind of Vinny to do that for us. And so our market just grew. And so right now, if someone says, what do you mostly do? I would say probably 60 to 70% of my business is in the multifamily area, either seller, buyer, refinancing, whatever is happening in that marketplace, we do. I've done some very large ones, $150, $200 million transactions. Have done syndication work with syndication counsel for Texas entities, for Delaware entities, which, is a pet peeve of mine.
So do you typically, just kind of get just some questions on that.
Sure.
Do you typically, when you do that, you said, obviously you have the SEC attorney, right? You have the
Right.
syndication attorney. They do what they're doing.
Right.
They write the private placement, and then you set up the entity, and that's where you come in.
Yeah, actually, in most cases,
do they set everything up?
The SEC attorney wants to set up the entities because in the documentation he has to hand out includes the company agreement.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, everybody else, 49 states, it's called an operating agreement, but here in Texas we have to be different. So we call them company agreements, which drives, outside counsel crazy. Why do you keep calling them company agreement? Because I live in the Republic of Texas, and that's how it's said here, right? And so so they'll draft those documents because they normally want to include them in their PPM things. Mm-hmm. But what they are smart enough to know is that normally they will send them to me in an edible form, because it's kind of an interesting chicken or egg thing. You've got to start getting some idea if you can raise the funds. At the same time, you're looking for a lender to lend the difference. And lenders always have requirements, and they normally have what's called single-purpose entity requirements, which is language they want in that company agreement that says things such as, you won't ever use this entity for anything other than to own this property and nothing else. Mm-hmm. You won't take second mortgages. You won't do a lot of other, right? So they restrict the use of this entity for this single purpose, which is this particular loan. And it says in the language they want added, as long as this loan is outstanding, you're going to abide by these restrictions. Well, SEC counsel doesn't know what those restrictions are when they are first drafting. So a lot of times we will get them after the fact. So I will have to go in and amend what SEC counsel has initially drafted to include the special language. Sometimes new investors come in, things of that nature. And so though they're initially formed by SEC counsel, I'm usually the one that ends up getting us to a final product, because I have to make the lender happy in order to do what we need to do in order to get the loan. So after that happens, the SEC colonel kind of steps aside. They're kind of out of the picture. I don't really need them after that any longer, unless we have SEC questions, right? If somebody wants to bring in X amount of money or wants to do this, and it's an SEC question, my client will normally call them to clarify that, because you don't ever want to make the SEC unhappy.
Right.
I mean, next to the IRS, from a federal agency standpoint, getting a letter certified mail from the SEC is not something you ever want. Mm-hmm. And so you really want to be very careful and use the person who has that knowledge to protect yourself. Yeah. So I take that transaction and then go from there.
So someone who, let's say, for instance, you have somebody they've been doing single family for a while. They're listening. They're like, man, I've been, they're wanting to move in that multifamily space. Right. Where do you usually tell them to start? Do you say, hey, talk with SEC attorney first? Talk with, where do you, where would their starting point be with someone who, they're obviously they're not new investors, they've never not invested, but they're saying, okay, I'm going to start making that little jump. Where do you say, hey, Because obviously you're part of the transaction
Right.
and what you've seen. Where should they start?
That's a great question. And normally, um, I'm going to guess, I'm just making up these numbers. 98% of the time, the call goes to the transactional attorney, and that potential investor or client / investor then gets introduced to SEC attorneys,
Mm-hmm.
as opposed to them being introduced to SEC attorney and then needing a referral for transactional, right? So it really depends. If you are in lifestyle, whatever it's called in Irving, right? I don't know if they send them to SEC attorney first or some transactional guys first when they say they want to get into multifamily. It's easier, I think, to contact transactional first
Mm-hmm.
because there's so much that you really need to know before you go spend money with an SEC attorney. Now, again, I've got a lot of SEC attorneys in my referral list who are very talented, very good people, but they get paid to draft PPMs.
Yeah.
Right. And so they're not overly anxious to spend a lot of time if they aren't certain they're going to get $12,000 to $15,000, which is what a standard PPM costs from an SEC attorney, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm one of those, and I've always been this, and I've been yelled at by my wife, my partner, other attorneys that I know. I'm probably too generous with my time and not charging people for things. But my mindset has always been, I want you to think of me more of your advisor and counselor than your lawyer. And I have always said to clients, if you've got a 10 or 15-minute call, please call me and don't worry about getting an invoice, because I would rather have you make that call to me than do something without getting advice and having me introduce you to my partner, Greg Meyer, because now you're being sued, right? Now, if this call starts turning into a half hour, 45 minutes, I'm probably going to stop you and say, Bubba, we've probably gone a little longer here, right? But I've never really had anyone take advantage of that per se. So I get a lot of new investors, both single family and multifamily, go, hey, I've got your name. I understand you do this. I think I've got a multifamily I would like to make an offer on. And my first response was, well, great. Do you have a broker? Well, I'm just going through the seller's broker. Yeah, I have a buyer's broker, et cetera. I said, well, what stage are you at? And we're drafting the LOI. I go, you want me to look at it? Just send it to me. I'll look at it. What do you charge? Just send me the LOI, right? Let me tell you what it looks like. So I'll get a lot of LOIs sent to me. And there's not much to an LOI, right? There's price, there's due diligence period, there's financing period. There's not a lot, right, in an LOI. And it's not binding anyway. So, I mean, if you miss something, you miss something, right? But if they go, yay, my LOI got accepted, where do I start? I go, well, you got the cash to pay for this $8 million multifamily property? No, I need to go get investors. All right, let's talk about what you have to do. Here's a list of SEC attorneys. Go visit with all of them. Find out which one you get along with the best, which one's economically feasible for you, and realize that while we're drafting the contract and everything, you've got to get this SEC attorney hired and start immediately on your PPM so you can literally go out and start raising money. So at that point in time, it becomes that two-street path that we have to follow, right? He's working with SEC counsel. We're getting a contract underway and hopefully signed and executed in the earnest money. And the hindrance of that was depending on the marketplace, right? From my investor standpoint, especially if I'm representing the buyer. Because in 2020, 21, and 22, especially in 2022, if you were buying a multifamily, you might as well understand that your earnest money was going to become non-refundable about the time you signed the contract, because it was such an incredible seller's market for multifamily, right? And so if you're going to put up $50,000, $100,000, you better make darn sure you feel comfortable about being able to raise the funds and to be able to qualify before we get you under contract, right? That was always the hurdle that we had to come. But most of those investors had already got a feel that they had people, right? People had come to them and said, hey, I've got $200,000 sitting in an IRA that's not making any money back then, right? Do you have something else, right? And they would kind of go, well, yeah, maybe, and in their mind, they said, well, I've had 10 people say that to me at $200,000. That's $2 million. I think I can do this, right? I think I can convince them to do this for them. And so they were already pretty prepared to do that. The problem would be I would say to these guys, I said, hey, listen, this money's going hard as soon as you sign this contract.
Mm-hmm.
You know, can we at least get you in your foot on the property for a little bit? I mean, how much access can you get from this property before we sign this contract? Because if I get you to sign this contract and you go in, you need to replace 8 of the 10 roofs, your numbers may be out of whack because you're already paying too much for these properties. And so it was a balancing act for them. They had a lot of legwork they had to do in order to do that. But assuming everything went well, again, the PPM, the SEC attorney would kind of fade away once everything was under contract. And from that point in time, it was me. You know, I would deal with the title company and they would send me the commitment. I would send out what's called a title objection letter, which is something that you would never do on the single family side, though you probably should, but nobody does, right? But you send out a title objection letter to the seller and to the title company saying, listen, title, we know you got a lot of promulgated items on this commitment that you've sent out, but none of them apply here. Or, hey, here you list an easement in your commitment, but the survey doesn't have one because the surveyor says the easement you've listed doesn't cross this property. So I need you to not show this easement on this final policy you're going to get my client, right? So there's objections of that nature that you pass. You include the seller in there thinking that the seller's going to be able to do anything, but they don't know. Most of the time, they don't even know they have the item on there, right? Because they didn't pay much attention when they bought the property, right?
Yeah.
You get a lot of problems with laundry leases, right? Everybody in multifamily's got laundry leases with the same company that, you know, it runs 10 years on there and everyone hates them because nobody's ever seen the original lease or anything. And so
we got to get in the laundry lease business, Misty.
Oh, yeah. CoinMac, which is like, I don't even know what they're called now, but that was the name they've been going. They were the monopoly, it seems, of laundry leases. And for some people, it made a lot of money, right? I mean, you didn't want to have to take care of anything if you were the owner of a multifamily. How nice to have someone take care of all the equipment. Normally, you know, if this was fairly new and if you didn't have a laundry lease when you bought the property and you got one, they would pay you a nice steps check beforehand to encourage you to do it. They'd bring you new equipment. That was one thing, and you'd make money off the laundry and never have to really maintain it because that was CoinMac's job. That was great. But after like year 8, and you had to crank the washing machine to get it started because it no longer really worked, and you couldn't get CoinMac out in some cases. It was cumbersome. And then to buy the property knowing that you were subject to this lease because there's no a way out of them unless the time period is expanded, it became a problem. So those were things that you would look at from a title objection standpoint. And at the same time, you know, you would get the lender who would go, you know, we need A, B, and C, get this for us. You know, you need the opinion letter that I described earlier. You need to make sure the companies are in good standing. We don't like this language in the company agreement, all these things to make the lender. Some lenders would make us do searches. So they'd say, you know, we need searches on these 2 entities that you've formed, even though they knew they were just formed 2 weeks ago, right? Like, yeah, I'm going to go do a search on tax liens and bankruptcy on an entity that was formed 2 weeks ago. I mean,
brand new.
You see the formation document. It says July 24th on there. I mean, you got him when I got him, and I don't know how bad my client is, but I can tell you he's not filing bankruptcy, right? But it didn't matter because just like so many other things in the real estate industry, they have to check the box, right? They got to check the box, even if it's not logical. They check the box, and so you would do those things. You would do searches. You would do searches on the sponsors / guarantors of the loan, and make sure they didn't have any odd things going on. Lenders ask you to get a good standing certificate, either from Texas or from whatever state the entity's been formed in. Again, it didn't matter if the entity was just formed or been around a long time. You know, you go buy good standing certificates and provide them with those kind of things. And then you get to a point in time where you're at closing. And then at closing, you had to make sure that the settlement statement is correct, that the numbers are right. You deal with the title company in that regard. So that was my task. And I always... And again, knowing investors as they are, their money is so tight, right? I mean, no matter if you're in the single-family home market or the multifamily market, money's tight, and you don't need to have to guess things. So I was always of the philosophy, you know what, I've done enough of these multifamily deals that I could pretty much know what I need to charge in order to make this profitable for the firm. So I just created flat fees, right, and said, this is my fee to represent you as a buyer in a transaction. If an opinion letter is not needed, same transaction, but an opinion letter is needed, this is my flat fee. Now, this doesn't include any costs. So if I have to file an amendment at the Secretary of State's office because we have to change things based on what your SEC attorney did and what your lender wants, all those third-party costs get passed on, and they know that. But investors like to know that in their budget, when they're determining, this $18 million deal, that counsel's not going to send them a $35,000 invoice at closing and go, what the heck, right?
Yeah.
Now, as often as I have seen lenders' counsel send their invoice in, I've always teased my clients, say, darn, I need up my flat fees because, what they did, by the way, I did 80% of their work for them, what they're charging. But it was easier to do flat fees, and it just made it so much simpler for my investors. And it's all worked out fairly well. I've never really said to myself, geez, I spent a lot of time on this one and I'm not getting a lot, right? And so, and then on the buyer side, you rarely get the control title. In Texas, sellers, quote unquote, control where title goes because they pay for it.
Let me ask that. At what point do you say, like, hey, you need me or you don't need me? Because I mean, where is what point where you say, so for instance, someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to represent you in this transaction, or I want you to represent me in this transaction on the buying side.
Right.
Is there a certain dollar amount as far as like the purchase price, or like at what point do you say, you don't need me yet? That actually small enough you could just kind of, you can utilize, just a traditional broker or whatnot and go through, or are you like, hey, this is pretty sizable, kind of, this is my threshold. I think you need me once we get to this level, or you're raising money, versus someone who says, well, I'm not going to raise money. I'm just it's me and two other partners or something. Like, at what point does that look like?
So my response would be, I think that my starting point is, how are you paying for the property, right? Mm-hmm. So if they say to me, I got to raise money, then you need me now from the beginning. If they say, well, I'm not raising money, I've got enough myself, or it's just me and my brother, I go, great. Now, I said, you can probably get through the process with your broker. They're going to take that Texas Association of Realtors commercial property contract. Yeah. They're going to fill in the blanks. And again, this is where I get in trouble with my partner and my wife and everybody who wants to be driving a Ferrari. I would normally say to them, but even with that in mind, will you just be kind enough to send me the TAR form? Just send it to me after your brokers fill it out, and then call me, and we'll spend 5 minutes, and I'll tell you what you need to look at. And I'll tell you if I see something in here that makes me, right? Because in many cases, the seller may have counsel, and they may have been okay with the broker using the TAR form, and then they attach a 3-page addendum to it, right? And the buyer's broker says to their client, oh, here we're just using the TAR form, and his attorney wrote some extra things down. Well, it's 3 pages of extra things, dude. I mean, we should probably spend some time on that, right? And so, so it depends. But then my next comment is, but when you visit with your lender, the first thing I need you to ask them for is the checklist of things that they're going to need to get you through underwriting. Mm-hmm. And then send me the checklist, and then call me. And I'll go through the checklist with you. And I will tell you those items on that checklist that you should never try to do by yourself.
Gotcha.
And if you can't do them by yourself, then you either retain me to do them for you or find somebody else that you want. And so it's also the best way to educate new multifamily investors is to kind of hold their hand and let them see the process, right? Also, people remember people who help. Mm-hmm. Right. And I may not get that deal, but Bubba is going to remember that when he called Milt Colegrove, he helped me get this first property without really spending a lot of money. And so when I'm now doing this $7 million deal, I'm going to call Milt Colegrove. Right. Yeah. And I get that call a lot. I know you don't remember me, but 14 months ago, you helped me with, so-and-so. Yeah. And in my head go, you're right, I don't remember you, but that's okay. Thanks for calling, right? Yeah. And so in my time as an attorney, the benefit to helping new investors in that regard has been tremendously overwhelming. I mean, I would do it continuously. I also tell clients, which again is my wife's not going to listen to this, I'm sure, is the fact that, I tell clients, listen, I am not going to take your money. I'm just not. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. You can tell as a transactional real estate attorney when there has been a seminar taught over the weekend about how to buy real estate. You can tell because on Monday or Tuesday morning, You get a call. Hey, Mr. Colegrove, I got your name. I'm Bubba, and I'm told that I immediately need a limited liability company. And I go, well, I appreciate you calling me, Bubba, but tell me, why do you need one? Well, I just went to a real estate seminar, ding, 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 and they said that for me to operate as a real estate investor, I need a limited liability company. I go, well, Bubba, that's great. I said, do you have current properties? Oh, no. Are you heading into contract, or are you under contract to buy your first home? Oh, no. He goes, no, I don't really know anything other than what I just learned this weekend, but I was told that I need a limited liability company. I go, okay, let me tell you something. I am not going to form a limited liability company for you.
Yeah.
What? I go, no, listen, I know that sounds odd, and then I'm not going to take your money. I could. I'd be happy to. A lot of people I know would be happy if I took your money. But I am not going to take your money to form a limited liability company if you're not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
But by the way, I can get one formed in probably 72 hours, right? And we could be all set. So when you are under contract for your first real estate property, you call me and we'll get you a limited liability company. Because I know in my head that 95% of the people who leave that seminar are never going to take that very dangerous, scary step of entering into a contract. They are so pumped when they go home Sunday night, right? I mean, they're taking their wife out to a fancy dinner because they are going to be the next millionaire, right? They are going to be the next real estate mogul because they spent $1,400 or more probably on the seminar, but they never pull the trigger.
Yeah.
And I'm saying to myself, well, I'm not going to. First of all, you're in one of those positions where money's tight. You just blew all this money on a seminar. I'm not going to take more of your money and form this company that you don't really need yet. Call me. And I can't tell you how many times they have 18 months down the road, they'll call me and go, I know you don't remember me, which is like the opening line for most of my calls. I know you don't remember me, but 18 months ago, I had just left a seminar and I have finally found a property. I'm under contract and I'm closing in 3 weeks. Can you still get me a company? Absolutely. Let's do it. Right. Congratulations, by the way. Let's do it. Right. And we can do that. But it's amazing how many times those people, again, remember who you are and we'll come back to you because you were just not willing to take their money for them.
It's that honesty.
Yep.
It's the honesty of, hey, you're not that I don't want to help you. Just, it won't help you.
Right. You're right.
Taking your money.
Right.
It's just,
yes. And my mindset has always been, my job's to make you successful, and me taking your money at this point in time isn't going to do that.
Yeah.
I would rather have you need me when you really need me and you are going to be successful, or you're heading down that path of doing things that you want to do, and then you'll remember me and things of that nature. But by the way, just a side note on seminars. Those of you who are listening, if you are attending a seminar who's taught by someone who does not live in the state of Texas, ask for your money back.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how many times I'll get those same calls on Monday and Tuesday and go, I want to do A, B, and C. And I go, you can't do A, B, and C in Texas. Well, I just attended a seminar. Well, who was it taught by? Some guy in Georgia. I go, we'll move to Georgia. Because you can't do that in Texas, right? Especially like lease options, contract for deeds, tax certificates, right? People go to tax certificate classes and go, hey, I understand I can spend $80 and get a $200,000 home. Yeah, you can't do that in Texas. Did they talk to you about the redemption period that are on tax sales here? Redemption period, what's that? I go, again, well, who was your instructor? Well, somebody from California. I go, well, there's a reason why people are leaving California because they're listening to people like that. I mean, stop, right? Go to Texas Taught, or someone who specifically says, I know Texas law or something, or follow up on after you've attended those seminars to make sure whatever you've been taught works here in Texas. We're unique.
Mm-hmm.
We're, we like to do things our way. I know that's shocking to those of you who are new to Texas, but we have this independent streak down our back, and we like to keep it that way.
There's a big guru that teaches a lot of lease options, not naming them or anything, and I remember hearing that, and then on the side knowing like we're screwed in Texas. It's not like everything they're teaching. It's great, like the concept, the idea,
Right.
like how they're like it's the way to get paid, overpaid,
Right.
but
Yeah.
you can't. I mean,
Right.
and they're a very large guru, and they've been
Right.
teaching for a very long time. It's like,
Yeah.
well, we can't do that.
Right. And if
I
it works
agree
in
with you.
48 states, that's great.
Yeah.
Keep teaching it, but have a caveat that says, by the way, this section that we're going to talk about is great if you want to go buy, because just because you're a Texan doesn't mean you may not want to go buy in Oklahoma or Utah or Rhode Island, right? So what you're learning is still going to be advantageous to you. Just know it's outside. And if the seminar teacher would say, all right, I know you guys are all Texans, and I'm going to teach a policy and a procedure that doesn't work here in Texas, but I'm going to teach it to you anyway in case you ever want to buy someplace else, right? That's fine. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
But to make people leave thinking what they can do is they can do in Texas is not right. It's just not really fair to them.
Yeah.
It's the same thing about people who call and opening their phone conversation with me. They go, "Hey, Mr. Colegrove, we got your name from WREI or Vinny Chopra or somebody." And I was reading on the internet that, and I go, "Stop, sir. You were reading on the internet?" "Yes." I go, "I just want you to know, just ahead of time, full disclosure, that my rate doubles for people who've read the internet. If I charge A, I'm going to now charge A times 2 because you've read the internet.
Fee.
It's an internet fee, exactly." And they go, "Why? What do you mean?" I go, "First of all, I'm kidding, kind of, but because I have to now re-educate you, I have to de-brainwash you from what you've read on the internet and teach you reality, right?" And then the funny thing is, because I don't know how many times I've had the same general practitioner for a very long time, and I'm guilty. I will walk into my doctor's office and I will be sitting there, and he always calls me counselor. He walks in and goes, "Counselor, what's gone?" And I go, "I was reading on the internet that I think I have blank," and he just laughs because he knows how I feel about my clients doing that.
Yeah.
Like I read on the internet, I may have chicken pox, right? I mean, that it's just, but we rely so much on it that it's understandable, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't always work here in Texas, or you just don't quite understand it. So yeah, vast majority of our work is my work is multifamily. I still do a lot of single family things. I still have a lot of people calling who have bought multiple rental properties and still own them in their own names, right? And somebody finally, their accountant or someone said to them, "Why in the world, do you own them in your own name? Do you know what the problem is, with that?" And so they'll call about wanting to know about asset protection on single family homes. I get not as much as it was maybe a year ago, wholesalers who will call, and they go, "Hey, I've been to DFWREI or someplace, and I need to build a team. I want to be a real estate guy, and I need to build a team. And your name was given as an attorney, and I know that I need an attorney for my team. What can you do for me?"
Mm-hmm.
I will, as a wholesaler, probably not much of anything. All right, let me help you with the wholesale market. One, you are one of 200 million wholesalers in the state of Texas, right? If you go down your block and knock on the door, I bet you almost every neighbor in your neighborhood is a wholesaler, right? I mean, that's kind of how it feels right now, right? I said, so let me tell you, let me give you some advice, suggestions about how you do your contracts for wholesaling, but you don't need me because you're never going to really get in too much trouble as a wholesaler, right? I mean, you never own the property, so you don't have that kind of liability. And if you're fortunate enough to find a buyer, that's great. You're not really giving any type of warranty on the property. It's still the buyer's job to check the property out. So as a wholesaler, you don't really need me. I said, when you have done enough wholesaling that you then take that next step where you want to be a landlord, or even if you want to fix and flip, then call me, because then there's some things probably I can help you with. But as a wholesaler, I don't, right? And so we get a lot of wholesaler calls, and that's great. It's the way most people are told they get their foot in the door, right? They will wholesale with the hope of raising enough capital then to go out and buy their first rental, and that's how the ball starts going down that hill, right?
So let me ask this: building a team, because that's something it's very common to hear that in real estate.
Right.
Build a team. Would you say it's best to build as you need, and not just call me? You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense? Like,
Sure.
I was at a seminar, I was at the club or whatever.
Right.
I want to build a team. Then, like you said, I don't have a deal.
Right.
You don't have anything yet.
Right.
Is it better to build those guys? I know as we've gone along, we've met people at the time we needed them, and not necessarily like
Ahead of time.
a year ahead of time.
Right.
Like, hey, be on my team, and then a year later,
Right.
all right,
Or
are you
met
ready?
them after we needed them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that too, right?
Yeah. Let's hope that doesn't happen too often. I would say as you need them, right? I mean, I think the important thing is to know that they potentially may be down the road of somebody you need.
Mm-hmm.
And if you know, you want to make an introductory call, that's fine. Most lawyers will happy spend a minute with you, but they're not going to remember who you are,
Right.
right? If you want to get a feel of somebody, that's great. But a year from now, things may change, and that feel that you had a year ago may not be the same. So, of that team, I bet you, if you're again, let's talk single family home that are not landlords. So let's take the landlords out of this equation for just a second. If you are a wholesaler or a fix and flipper, a lawyer is the last person you need on your team because in many cases you may never need one, right? A good broker to help you find deals. You know, brokers that are investor friendly, which there's just a few out there who are willing to deal with you with the investor marketplace, right? Yeah. Because there's a lot of deals that never get signed, right? And for a real estate agent, that's not profitable because they make money getting properties under contract, right? Finding a good agent that will help you find deals as a wholesaler or as a fix and flipper. To me, a good accountant has got to be one of the first things you do, right? To help you understand how you want to book things and keep account of things and things of that nature. If you're an accountant who says to you, this would be so much easier, you're being somewhat successful in your fix and flips. This would be so much easier if we formed a limited liability company and took some advantage of the tax consequences. Then that call to the attorney may be advantageous at that point in time. But for fix and flippers and wholesalers, I don't really have a lot of them, right? Yeah. Because I get fix and flippers who go, listen, I know there's not a liability, but I'm selling properties, and if I'm selling properties, there's potential for liability. I get some buyer who doesn't like the fact that something broke afterwards, and they're going to come after me. I don't want them to come after me personally, so I want to do my fix and flips in an NC. Will you form it for me? Sure, that's simple, right? We'll form a simple LLC. You and your wife or you and your partner or whatever, do all your fix and flips under that entity. And then again, if somebody's not happy because the roof's bad or whatever, or something that you've repaired didn't work out and you get sued, great, you got some protection, right? And so that works. But I do think, to answer your question, piece by piece is really, because it makes no sense. Again, if you want to make introductions to people and get a feel about people, that's great. But things change, and you may not have that same feeling, right?
They won't remember you.
No.
Like you said, they're not. They're going to be like, I don't really remember that conversation, who that person is. There's no relationship there. It's the relationship's going to come because you work together. Because you need their help, they need you.
They may have caught me on a day in which the Cubs won a game the day before, and I'm happy. And then a year from now, they may have just blown a 2-run lead in the bottom of the ninth, and I'm not happy. And I'm not going to be the same personality. And so they're going to go, well, you're not the same nice guy a year ago. I said, well, what was the box score a year ago?
So what he's saying, anybody that's listening, is make sure you pay attention to what's going on with the Cubs.
That's right. Call me on the day after. Yeah. Which, lately means I wouldn't have to work very often. It's not like 2016, right? Teams are important. Teams are extremely important. And I would say to you much differently if you are a landlord or if you're buying multifamily. And we're not, and I say multifamily, let's throw any commercial in there, office buildings, strip centers. But those are different animals, even though they're all defined by a lender as commercial. Multifamily is outside that realm of commercial. And because right now, I think in Texas, the marketplace for office buildings and strip centers is really difficult and really not going to prosper while multifamily is still hanging in there, surprisingly. The multifamily market here in Texas was so overvalued in 2021 and 2022 that people paid way too much for them, especially in the DFW area. We were very proud of our apartment complexes here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, right, for the last couple of years. And so you paid too much. Think of the multifamily guy who bought in 2020, the spring of 2020, and paid an incredible amount per door for a multifamily because he thought things were going to just be rosy, right? And he doesn't really have the background or doesn't have enough money or to get a standard, what I would define as conventional multifamily loan through Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac. And so they have to go get a bridge loan, and a bridge loan is a commercial loan that is a little higher interest rate. The underwriting is a little more difficult, and usually either has an adjustable rate after a certain period of time, or the maturity date is really, really quick, like 24 months, 36 months, right? It's just like it sounds, a bridge loan. It's meant to get you into the property. You do some fix up, you do some repairs to a point where it's in good condition, and you can refinance it with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac standard loan, right? That's the thought. So if you're in 2020 and that's your mindset, and you buy too much, you spend too much for a multifamily, and you do a bridge loan that the interest rates are high and your margins are extremely thin. One, because your mortgage payment to the lender is really high, and maybe you've got a little bit of room you can bump up rents, and you do that. And then all of a sudden, COVID hits, right?
Yeah.
And most of my investors are Class B and Class C investors, which means properties that have been around a while. This is not a brand new. You saw it got built last week, and now you bought it, right? Those are institutional people buying and building those properties, right? You're buying that 80 unit Class B that needs some work, right? And if you're really desperate, Class C, right? So you're in that. And so your margins are really, really tight. And then your property management calls you 8 months, 9 months into COVID and says, hey, want the good news or the bad news? Oh, yeah, give me the good news first. We are at 92% occupancy. Fabulous. What could possibly be the bad news? We're at 65% collection. What do you mean you're at 65% collection? Well, yeah, 65% are all the people that are paying. Well, then just get rid of everyone. We can't.
Yeah.
All the COVID restrictions. We can't get them out, right? And it was just a terrible time to be a multifamily. Fortunately, most lenders who didn't want the properties back were willing to help in some fashion and extend things and do some things. But COVID's over now. Rents are back to kind of where they're at. Evictions are flowing like crazy. My partner, who, as I mentioned, does 25 to 30 cases a month. He is at the county court law because the property management company has won at the Justice of the Peace Court, and the tenant has appealed, and it goes to the county court, and that's when you need legal counsel. 25 to 30 a month he's at doing those because the eviction floodgates have opened now, right? The restrictions are all gone. We're no longer under the emergency status that the governor had signed. Everything's ready there. And so they're trying to do that. So they think everything is okay. And now they look at their loan and realize that their 36-month maturity date is just a few months away. Mm-hmm. And they're saying to themselves, that's great, but I got that loan at X%. And since that time, the interest rates have gone up to here. Well, if I go refinance this, maybe there's enough spread now I can survive, or maybe I can just, put it on the market, right? And so the buy-sell transactions I've seen since the latter part of 2022, but especially 2023, have all been scenarios where they were hoping to be able to assume the existing loan at the initial rate, which was much lower than what the market is right now, and having the lender extend the maturity date out. Because again, we all know this, right? Lenders don't want these properties back. They don't. Yeah. What are they going to do with an 80-unit property in Euless, Texas, right? They don't want that stuff. I mean, they want the money. We've got a bunch of investors who want cash, right? So they're a little more prone to work with that. But, if you can't get a lender, and then if you do get under contract and you do think you can do that, the closing date is terribly far out because it takes lenders forever to agree on assumptions and to get people qualified. I don't understand the why, but it does. I mean, I've got somebody who's been under contract since February, and it's only like a $4 million deal, and he still can't get the lender to approve the assumption, though they keep saying, yes, you can, right? And so fortunately, this is not a seller's market. So seller's been willing to extend and extend and extend, hoping he's got a buyer on the hook, and eventually he's going to get out of this deal. Yeah. But, lenders are afraid. New lenders are afraid because they don't know what rates are going to be. They don't know things are going, so new money's difficult to find. So
how long do you usually see? Have you seen, the closing dates? Like how far out? 4 months, 5 months, 6 months. On average, you see like, hey, that's pretty typical.
I've been told to go to try to go 7 to 8 months. Yeah. On assumptions, right? If it's a flat out purchase, you're still going to go that same, 120, 180 days kind of thing. But I've seen assumptions go. One, to get a seller to agree to that time period initially is difficult. So normally you guys, you say with your client, okay, what do you think we can get? Right. Well, they'll give us 180 days. I go, okay, let's put 180 days. Hey, the market's changed. You're not putting a lot of money up front anymore, right? It's no longer non-refundable. Let's get a financing contingency, 180 days. Then at 180 days, the seller is going to feel so committed to you as the buyer. if the only thing that's preventing this closing from happening is getting the lender who continually says this looks good to get the paperwork all done, they're going to be really prone to extend.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that's kind of the play, right? You got to hope that you are going to get the seller to agree to continue to extend because he's so far into the game. Because he knows that if he says, no, I'm not going to extend, he's going to have to start the
back
clock
on the
all over
market.
again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in today's market, you may not even get the deal you had or any deal, right? And so you start reasonable and then just hope that you can extend. And so far, we've not had any seller that went, nope, I've got 12 guys, right? In 2001, 2002, you could have never done that, right? Because there are people standing in line for the property.
Yeah.
It's crazy. This is the craziest change in the market that I've ever seen. I tell people, you went to bed Friday and it was a seller's market, and you woke up Monday morning and all of a sudden it was a buyer's market. I mean, it felt that quick
Overnight.
about how things changed from single family, but especially multifamily. I mean, from like I mentioned, non-refundable, earnest money to heck, you give us $1, just sign the contract kind of thing. I mean, it's changed dramatically, and that's the joy of the market, right? I mean, I have investors who are successful. They go, we don't care what the scenario is out there. We will make money. We will find a way to make money if interest rates are high. We'll find a way to make money if interest rates are low. No matter what, we'll find ways to make. And they are flexible, adjustable, and they have different ideas.
Do you find because every strategy is different, right? Miss and I are very big buy and hold investors. We like to buy, we like to hold. We've never really fixed or flipped or wholesaled, and I'm not afraid to admit it. Every time I say that, I've always been told, actually, you guys kind of skipped over the other stuff and went straight to what you're supposed to do. So, but do you find any of your multifamily investors, do you find them hanging on to things for a long time, or do you find like the strategy more of the guys you work with or the people you work with, do you find them using that strategy more of like, hey, we're going to have this for 3 to 5 years and then sell it? Like, what do you see more common just from your side of the fence?
I would say most of my investors walk into a syndication telling their investors, you're going to be in this property 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take us that long to get this property turned around, do whatever improvements we need to make, get it stable, get good rents, up the rents if the market will let us do that. 3 to 5 years, and then we're going to get your money out, and then we're going to find another property.
Mm.
That's always been the norm or the hopes of syndication investors. I don't think they can say that right now because they're not going to get what they thought they would have got at that 3 to 5 year period. So my guessing is they're going to be forced to hold it a little longer unless the market, I mean, we talk about this difficult market that we're in, but it's not been that long, right? I mean, we're not talking, we're not sitting here and I'm going, Christopher, listen, man, this market's been 10 years like this, right? I mean, that's not the case. We may not even be at 10 months, right? And so things can possibly change as quickly as it went the other way. We don't know, but to answer your question, the norm was always, they've always told their investors 3 to 5 years is what they want to hold it for, because they're not in the business to be long-term owners. They want to fix and flip, though that's not how they would describe it as multifamily, but that's what they're really doing, right? It's just a longer period and a more expensive fix and flip than when you buy a house in Farmers Branch.
Yeah.
Spend a couple, $1,000 on things and then sell it. I mean, again, even the fix and flip market now is tough because again, it's not a seller's market on the single family area either.
Mm-hmm.
So as you guys being and buy and hold investors, one, I say bless your heart because
she's the property manager. I mean, she's the property manager. That's one of her day-to-day things. And
not that you know me that well, but I would say to you that I would rather be a St. Louis Cardinals fan than be a landlord. And those who know me know how severe that would be for me to be a St. Louis Cardinals fan. I am not born with any man skills. Zero.
Oh, me neither. Don't worry.
Zero.
We're on the same page. I refuse to lift a hammer. My job is to write checks. Actually, that's her job.
Right.
Her job is to write checks.
I would tease when Sears was still a robust company, and I would tease at Christmas time, we would get Christmas cards from Sears and Roebuck /Craftsman, and they would be addressed to my wife, not to me. So my wife comes from a family of contractors in Southern Utah, a bunch of boys. She's a crafts person, all the crafts in our home are handmade and all those kind of things, right? I would go in and go, okay, sir, what can I get for you? I need a drill press. And they go, what kind of drill press do you need? One that puts holes in wood.
Yeah, that's me.
I have 8 different kind of drill presses. So I got to a point in time and go, just give me the most expensive one you have. I don't care what it does. Just give me the most expensive, because I'm sure whatever it does has got to be what my wife wants. You don't want to know what this does? I don't care. Does it work when you plug it in? Yep. Put it in a box.
That's me, man.
Right?
So there's a Bill Barnett had wrote a book, and it was How You Dumb Enough to Be Rich, and I read that long ago. I mean, not a long time ago, and one of his lines was, "Your job is to not lift a hammer." It was something along the lines of, "Your job is not to lift a hammer, but to be a professional check writer." And I was like, "Check, please." I can do that all day. That's fine. I mean, we were at a property the other day, and Misty's like, "Here, grab this stuff and take it out." I was like, "It's not my job, Misty." I'm like, "I'm not here for that." I was like,
Amen.
I'm like,
Amen.
That's not my job.
Yeah.
That's when you hire someone to do that. She's over there moving stuff, and I'm looking at her like, just hands up, like frustrated, like, this is not what I'm supposed to be doing. Just hire someone. And then,
you would think that as a male, you would be embarrassed. I have a dear
I'm not.
I have a dear friend who talks about the fact that we all have man cards, right?
Yeah.
And there are times when I will be visiting with him, and he would say, "You're really getting close to me to take your man card away from me, right?" And what's really it used to be embarrassing. It's not anymore. But when my boys had grown up and got married and moved out of the house, they would call and they'd go, "I just bought a swing set in the backyard." I go, "That's really cool. What are you calling for?" He goes, "Where's mom? What do you need mom for? I need some help. I need two hands. I need a set of hands. What about me? Where's mom?" Right? They knew. Yeah. And initially that would kind of bother me. I go, I don't care.
Yeah.
Why are you calling my number? Call your mother's number, right?
When Misty and I met, she was like, I'm 22, right? She was 26, and she had a house, everything. I'm like, so she's thinking, I moved in, and she's thinking I'm gonna like mow the lawn. And I'm like, she looked at me, she was like, "So are you gonna?"
It's getting kind of tall out there.
I was like, "Okay, you need to call somebody." I don't mow the lawn. Like, that's just what it is. But on the flip side, though, so like I train jujitsu, right? So like that's very strenuous. You're talking about choking people, arm locking, throwing. I mean, it's not for most people.
Right.
So like I can do all of that. I just know what I'm good at and what I'm not. And what I'm not good at is a lawnmower. And what I have no desire is mowing the lawn. I really just write the check.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it.
It's important to recognize your weaknesses in life.
Yeah, I get it.
And to accept them, and then to deviate whatever you have to do in order to overcome those weaknesses, right?
Yeah.
And that's in all aspects of life. So for landlords, especially single family homes, I just have so much respect for them, because the last thing I want is a call at 2:00 in the morning that says the toilet's backed up, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we all recognize, or at least we should, that, again, we talked about how tight income is on single-family homes. That's nowhere to be compared to, on multifamily, to single-family homes, where the margin is,
It's
right?
thin.
It is very thin. And then to say to yourself, well, because I have guys that go, I'm starting in the residential rental area, and I go, great. I says, what do you know? What can you do? Oh, I'm going to hire a property management company. I go, dude, let me tell you something. When you look at the numbers, you're not going to hire a property management company until you're maybe at 5 homes, but more likely 10 homes before monetarily paying those guys their percentage makes economic sense to you, right? So unless you have the capability of having some extra cash to call a professional to come fix the toilet, or you married someone who's capable of doing that, it's going to be tough for you in the beginning. And that's the dilemma. Everyone kind of thinks, I'm going to go buy a house and I'm going to find a great tenant, and they're going to just cut me a check, and I'm going to put, $200 a month away, and I'm going to do 20 of those, and life's going to be good. And for many cases, I get that call 2 or 3 times a year that says, hey, I've been doing this for a long time, and I've never had a bad tenant until now, and I've got a bad tenant. I go, wow, how lucky you are. I mean, what is what's the magic there? I mean, what have you done, right? Write a book on how to find good tenants, dude, because you'd sell millions of them. Because for every one of you, there's 20 out there who go, my first rental, I've got that professional tenant as my first one. It's like I had this thing imprinted on my forehead that says new landlord, right?
Yeah.
Right?
You need to write that book, Misty. Because she's had some decent luck on tenants.
Yeah, because that's what makes successful single family home people is having good tenants, right? Because you don't want to spend money on evictions. You don't want to spend money on having to redo the property after they've left and they painted all the walls black, right? You can't find enough kills at Home Depot to cover it, right? And those kind of things. And then they want to argue with you about the security deposit, which, was $800, right? Which isn't going to cover anything, but, they're going to threaten to sue you for the $800. And, you got to go defend yourself in a JP court. Or if you call my office and they go, I got to fight with a tenant over a security deposit. And I go, how big's the security deposit? $1,200. I go, I can introduce you to Greg, but he's going to ask for a retainer that's like 3 times that. So just write the check back, right? I mean, it makes no sense to argue over a $1,200 security deposit unless you want to go to JP first, which fine. If you want to go take your time out of your day and go to JP and defend yourself and hey, everything's appealable at the JP court, right? I mean, it's the only court system we have in Texas that doesn't have to have attorneys or judges, right? And so everything they do, it's not of record. If you lose, you can appeal it and go and then hire counsel. But for many cases, it's just not economically worth it. I think that's the big problem we have as business people, but as real estate investors all the time, I get people who call me and go, I've got a tenant and he owes me $5,000 and I've got him out, but I want to go after him for the rent. I go, well, I'm happy to introduce you to my partner, Greg Meyer. He'd be happy to take your money to go get that judgment for you. I said, but when you get that lovely sheet of paper that says this person owes you $5,000, what are you going to do with it? Well, doesn't the court help us collect? No. No. Well, I'll go take something. I go, okay. Let me give you a brief law exam question about what is exempt and non-exempt property here in the state of Texas if you are a creditor. So first, before I do that, let me give you a little history about our great state of Texas. It was founded by a bunch of deadbeats from the Tennessee-Ohio Valley who were running away from everybody they owed money to, including their in-laws. And they ran to Texas. And they were hiding here in Texas. And when they decided to finally make the mistake of becoming a state, they said, let's pass a bunch of laws that say creditors can't take anything. How great would that be? And they did. And so when you think about what little you can do in Texas as a creditor, getting that $5,000, $6,000 judgment isn't worth your time, especially knowing you got to pay the attorney because attorneys don't do those things on contingency. So now you've added legal costs and court costs to collect. And they go, but it's the principle of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the principle.
Principles costly.
You know what's funny is I just had that same conversation with a very good friend of mine like 2 days ago.
Yeah.
And he asked a question about it and we kind of got in a conversation and he's like, I was like, yeah, it doesn't matter. They're going to get a piece of paper and now it's principle and you can't get them. He's like, they can't no, there's nothing. They can't come after you for anything. Right. It's not, you just won this piece. Because we have an investor friend of ours that he's done very well. He buys a lot of warehouses. I mean, he's like one of the large investors in Fort Worth. And I remember him telling me a story. This is where I learned it from. He told me a story that he used to get when he started out buying, like he buys Sam's Clubs, like stuff like that. He's buying those and turning them in. But when he started out, he would get screwed over by a contractor, and he was like, he always remembered it. And then when he finally was to the level he is now, he was like, I just do this shit for fun. Now I'm actually going to go and get after these guys for their money because I want to make sure that they know, hey,
they were wrong.
You were wrong. I got the piece of paper and I have deep pockets just to do this just because I want to do it.
Right.
And so, yeah, I mean, some people don't realize that. I remember just hearing that long ago and going, huh, okay. It's not worth the lawsuit. It's not worth the money. It's not worth the time. And unless you got deep pockets, it's not worth doing any of that part.
Yeah. Yeah, I tell those people, I go, listen, here's what you do. You take that $5,000 judgment that you've been given from the court, and you go to Kroger, and you fill up your cart with T-bones and sirloins and fillets. And you take that cart to the register, and they ring it up for you, and you hand them that $5,000 piece of paper. Are they going to let you take all those steaks with that principle that you just got? No, they're not. You can't buy anything with principle in that regard. And I understand it. And there are certain times where that has to work, right? If you're a business owner and you've had your people sign non-competes and you've had someone who's clearly violated that, and from a monetary standpoint, you're not going to get anything from that employee. But you need to set an example to all of your other employees that you're going to go after somebody who breaches that non-compete. That makes sense because you are setting a precedent if you don't. Right. But for seeking unpaid rent, it's
not worth it.
One, your other tenants don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just doesn't really make a difference to those people, right? Especially the professional tenants, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and they are out there. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's lots of stories where you get, this client, long-term client, unfortunately just passed away, but he was probably 60 in the 60s when he first called me, got into a deal where he had multiple single-family homes, and he got a lady with a child, and he said, okay, well, the earnest money, the security deposit is $800, and the rent's $1,200. I'm making up numbers. Well, I don't really have the $800 right now or the $1,200, but I've got 7. But in a couple weeks, I'll have the rest. Will you take the 7 so that I can get my child in this home and get her into the school district? And she was a very lovely lady and a cute little kid, and he was 60, and he went, sure. I'll take the $700. A couple weeks, just pay me the rest. Never saw another dime from this lady. And after she filed bankruptcy multiple times, 18 months later, we finally had her removed from the property. And he'd gone that long without ever seeing another dime other than $700.
She knew what she was doing.
And I was going to say, I can guarantee you she went and did that same thing. It may not even have been her child. I don't know. Hey, can I borrow my niece for just a second? I'm going to take her swimming today. Right? Who knows?
That's how I feel about one of the situations you've been going through. You have someone who's contacted you over and over on a property, that you manage. It's not ours. It's someone else's you manage. And I'm like, Misty, I don't have a good feeling that it's fraud or they're going to, or a professional tenant.
Right.
I would lean towards professional tenant more than
Yeah.
anything else because they've actually showed their face,
Yeah.
but the first few times they didn't show up. So yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, you got to be really careful. As a single family investor in that market, your tenant is everything, right? To be able to do what you want to do and make sure. I also see people wait too long, right? Or again, most of us have good nature, right? It's our hope of thinking everyone's good.
Yeah.
And so, but you get people who go, well, they were great for a couple months, and then they were late for 3 months, and then they kind of caught up, but then they were bad again, and I go, well, why? We're into like month 14 of a 3-year lease. Why are you waiting so long?
Yeah.
Right? Same thing when you get seller financing people who kind of go, they call me and go, you did the seller financing deal for me, and the guy's 5 months behind. I go, 5 months? Why did you wait 5 months to call me that this guy's 5 months behind?
Yeah.
Well, he always promised he was going to pay. Oh, well, how'd that work for you? 5 months.
Still promising.
People, don't be nice. This is a business, right?
Yeah.
If you're seller financing and for 2 months they haven't paid you, you call me. We'll start the eviction process. The foreclosure process, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he'll either bring you current or you'll never see another dime, which meant you're never going to see another dime anyway, right? But why wait that long? And I kind of feel the same way as landlords of single-family homes wait that long. Multifamily people, property management companies don't wait that long.
Yeah.
Well, you're second month and they've got that notice on your door and you're out of here, right? They just can't afford to do that. But single-family home people are a little more kind-hearted and wait too long, or they just don't want to deal with. They're hoping that it'll fix itself, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to have to do an eviction. I've never done an eviction. I don't want to do that. Seems
Especially-
messy. And
I see it a lot when people have kids and they're, oh my gosh,
yes.
kids. I feel
yeah, what am I going to do?
I got
Yeah.
kids too.
Exactly.
Slap the note.
Exactly.
Here it is. My kids too. I got
Yeah.
I don't
kids
want to
too.
make them
Yeah.
homeless.
Yeah. I just saw a post on one of the real estate things on Facebook where somebody had done the notice, right, in a big smiley face. And it says on top, guess who's moving? And underneath it says, you are.
Yeah.
Right?
I've seen that float
That's
around.
fabulous.
Yeah.
And
only if we could put that right. Is that
yeah, and then this evictions apply for the same. Quickly, I really want to make sure we get to the series concept.
yeah.
But let me just tell you one last thing about landlord tenants. When my partner handles things for apartment complexes, the biggest problem is that they screw up the initial eviction. Right? Again, in Texas, you have to start evictions at the Justice of the Peace Court, and in Texas, you're allowed to do that without counsel. So many property management companies go try to do this themselves,
Mhm.
and they will goof it because they don't provide proper notice, right? They don't document how they gave notice. They will slap it on the outside of the door when the statute says you can't unless there's
Inside.
these circumstances, right? They hand it to somebody, but they don't write down who they handed it to, and all these things, right? And so, they will have won the JP quarter, and because the JP just doesn't really care, and or they lost and they want to appeal it, and they get the file to my partner. He goes, "We got to start this over again. It's never going to get." The county court of law judge, who's a real judge, right, and he's a licensed attorney, a judge, is not going to let you get past the fact that your notice is improper, right? So if you are a new single-family home landlord, make sure you understand the process of eviction, right? At least the notice part, and because after you get the notice part done, you're great. Make sure that you understand what your lease says is your time period of notice, the difference between someone paying you, you're evicting them for non-payment of rent or because of some other reason, or because they're a holdover. Understand that JPs are very reluctant to remove tenants for reasons other than non-payment, right? I mean, I get landlords who call me and go, "This guy never cuts his grass. I always have to go over and knock on his door and tell him to cut his grass, and then he'll eventually do it. I'm tired of going over there. I want to evict him." I go, "Does he pay you?" "Yes." You're never going to get him a victim. You're not going to go to JP and tick this man out of his home with his kids because you have to remind him occasionally to cut the grass.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen, right? And so be aware of those things as a new landlord, especially the notice issue, because that screws up most evictions for landlords, is just not knowing how to give notice. And it's easy to do. Find the statute, or pick up this phone and ask somebody, or go to the web. Just don't tell anyone you did, right? I mean, that's learn that. So
Don't call you. And
don't
say,
call me.
I
and
was
tell me
on
you
the
went to-
internet and
I
looking
was,
around.
Yeah, exactly. Don't tell me you went to the web. So let's. I don't even know what time.
Series. Yeah. Let's talk about series. Now we got some time. Yeah. So let's talk about series. So series LLC. I know
Yeah.
we have one as well for our properties. We did that some
Yeah.
years and years ago.
Yeah.
So you said that. So you were talking about there's some problems with they're great, but there's also some issues.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I still do lots of them every month. They are now it's interesting. You can put 10 attorneys in a room and ask them their opinion of a series, and you'll get 10 different opinions. Not only will you get some who say, "I hate them, I won't do them," right? But those who do like them will tell you 8 different ways of how to do them, right? And the problem with series right now is they've never been tested. There's no court case that has determined the structure or anything about the series.
No precedent.
Right. And I would always say, I wish somebody would get sued. I wish some series client of some other firm would get sued so they could set precedent. I don't want my clients to be the
I
guinea
got to
pig.
get up and walk around. Spider, where's the wood, man?
Yeah, but I want someone else. I want someone else to be that guinea pig, right? Because it would finally answer some questions. So in 2000, and prior to 2009, we were one of those states that said, if you own 10 properties, like I mentioned early on, you had to set up 10 companies, or throw 3 in one, 3 in another to get asset protection, right? It's never really there. And then finally, our legislature said, let's be the 10th state at the time to have a series statute. And we were all very excited about it, right? And we thought, well, geez, right, if they did this properly and did the series statute properly, not only would it work great for real estate investors, but it would work great for business people, right? So somebody comes in and says, "Listen, I own a pizza store, a dry cleaner, and a donut shop, and I need some asset protection." If series had been set up properly, we'd have said one entity, each of those in their own series, right? Well, for some strange reason, the attorneys in the high towers and the professors want us to follow Delaware. I don't. It's so frustrating. I mean, Delaware fits in my backyard, right? Why do I want to follow statute in Delaware? I know that for early on, Delaware had their own, they have their own court system for business issues, right? I mean, they were the king. They were the example and the people who did that. That was long ago. We are Texas. We have the second or third largest economy in the country, right? Probably in the top 10 in the world. I don't need to follow Delaware. Mm-hmm. Stop. Let's create statutes that benefit Texans and have it do what we want it to do. Nobody has yet listened to me, which is shocking. Maybe when they hear this, they'll change their mind. So for a long time, you would tell people, yeah, I heard about the series. Can I do this? Are you a real estate investor? No, then not really, because you couldn't get separate tax ID numbers at the state level for a series here in Texas because they were not codified at the Secretary of State's office. There's nothing really to file, right? We didn't quote unquote register series in Texas for a long time. And the comptroller's office pulls information from the Secretary of State's office to give tax ID numbers. And so they'll see that main LLC that you formed, but the series that you formed underneath it, they had no idea existed. So you couldn't get a sales tax permit for your dry cleaner or your pizza place or your donut shop if it was in a series name. So they were still forced to go form separate limited liability companies. But for the real estate investor, it was great. You could form one limited liability company and put a bunch of your rental properties in each series and isolate assets and liabilities. And they didn't need to have sales tax numbers or anything. So we didn't care if the comptroller's office didn't notice it. Now there's always, again, like I said, you get different opinions, right? And when I make this statement, I love Craig Ferguson as when he used to host a late night show. He would make a comment and then he would look in the audience and say, I look forward to your letters, right? Because he'd say, cats are awful. And then he'd look in the audience and go, I look forward to your letters. Because he knew he'd get 10,000 letters from people who loved cats. Right?
Yeah.
So when I make this statement, I say to all of my fellow attorneys, I look forward to your emails, right? Because I'm going to get them, right? And again, this has not been tested. So nobody really knows for certain. The statute says here in Texas that each series must keep its own books and records. That's what it says. And so the question always comes up, does every one of my series need a bank account? My opinion, and it's solely my opinion, it's never been tested. Who knows if it ever will be, but my statement is no. And the reason why is because I can't find a court case in the state of Texas that has said the definition of books and records as defined in any statute in Texas includes bank accounts. And the reason why I'm opposed to having my series have bank accounts is because I'm trying to make my client's life as easy as it can be. Having them form 22 bank accounts and have to balance 22 bank accounts doesn't make my client's life easy.
That's a lot of work.
That's my point of what a series should have been, right? And so until somebody can show me otherwise, or until a court says books and records is defined as bank accounts, I'm going to continue to say, I don't think you have to. And I explain to my clients my opinion. I said, but you're welcome to go get another opinion. And you may get another opinion. They go, no, books and records include bank accounts. You got to have a bank account for that series. If you feel more comfortable, then go do that. I don't have a problem with that, right? And so
we had an attorney or an accountant one time it was an accounting firm that we were looking into possibly working with, and they were like, all right, you got to take all your properties, our rentals, and bank account for everyone. I was like, oh man, that sounds like a pain. I was just like, no, I don't want to do that. Like I have no, like you're talking about, this one and this one and this one. And then I'm like, but the problem is that it doesn't, as a single family investor, the reason that's so difficult is because if the AC breaks on this one, well, your other X amount of properties actually help cover the AC on that one. You can't, it's not, if you're only cash flowing $200 a month, you're not just negative, you're negative. Like they're like, okay, now I'm gonna need a credit card for that property and a credit card for that property and for that, because you won't survive like that. It's done as a mass. It's not done, it's not, there's no singularity to it. And I remember hearing that years ago. I was like, Misty, we can't do that. That's not going to work.
No, if you go to Webster and look at rob Peter to pay Paul, it says see real estate investors, right? I mean, doesn't it?
Yeah. I'm still in that.
Because that's what it is, right? I mean, especially single family home guys. And so to me, I don't want to make your life more difficult. It's like the same thing. Well, you got to go get tax ID numbers. Well, I know the IRS has said you can, but why? File everything under your LLC, everything. The purpose of your series is statutorily to keep an asset separate from other assets. It does not say, and make your life difficult in the statute. right? And so until a court reads differently to me or adds something to the meaning of that statute that says you have to keep separate bank accounts, you have to do separate ID, that's what we want you to do to establish the singularity of the protection within a series. I'm not going to make my clients do that. Now, again, I'm going to get emails from people who've listened to this and go, oh, no, you got to have a bank account. I appreciate your opinion. I really do. You may be absolutely right, but until someone proves me I'm wrong, I'm going to continue to advise my clients that way.
Yeah.
And I realize they're going to say, you're taking a great risk. I go, you know how quickly my clients can all go form bank accounts if a court says, oh, you got to have a bank account. I'm going to send out a mass email and go, hey, look at this stupid opinion from this district court in Dallas. Go get a bank account.
We follow, so Misty and I follow that profits first concept. We don't follow it to the T the way they say, hey, you need to like this, but we do follow it to a large degree. And I think we're probably sitting at, we sit at a lot of bank accounts just with what we've got going on. I couldn't even imagine the amount of bank accounts we'd have to have with all the properties.
I know.
That would be wild.
Right.
I mean, and our bookkeeper always tells us, you got a lot of bank accounts. She's from Tennessee. You got a lot of bank accounts. This is a lot of work you got going on. To throw that out there with those other ones. I mean,
it would be a nightmare. Yeah,
it'd be a nightmare.
Yeah.
I mean,
and again, they may happen. I mean, every session of the legislature, the serious statute gets tweaked in some way until we get it the way we think we want it. Though we still haven't done what I think we should do with it, and still, we should have followed the Illinois concept instead of the Delaware concept when we first formed it in Illinois. Even though a series is within an LLC, it's really kind of treated like its own entity. Mm-hmm. So it had the capability of being an ongoing business kind of thing. It was just meant to be part of a larger thing. It almost said, we're gonna create subsidiaries for you and give it a specific statutory protection at the cost of having one entity, right? Because that's the real big advantage, right? For a series, you form one LLC, you pay one filing fee, you pay legal work for one LLC, and then you just form series after keep adding series, right? There's an unlimited number of series, and you got this asset protection per house without having to pay for, right? That was the joy of it. And then so the problem you would occasionally run to would be you would get tenants who would constantly write checks, in the series name instead of the LLC name, and people couldn't cash it. Or the bigger problem is that you'd have clients who had properties like in that western Denton, Tarrant County area that had mineral right checks coming their way. And the mineral right company would only send you a check in the name of the party that owned the company. And so they would check it and they would say, Series 1515 Brown of Bubba LLC. And so they'd send you a check every quarter in the name of Series 1515 Brown, and you take it to your bank and you go, and the poor teller would go, you only have an account for Bubba LLC. I don't know who Series 1515 Brown is, right? So I'd get calls. Or the other thing would be you'd go to closing and you would be selling your property Series 1515 Brown, a series of Bubba LLC, and the title company would go, I need some documentation on series. You'd send it to them, and they'd go, well, there's nothing in Austin, right? And so all those scenarios were easily solved because you'd go file an assumed name certificate. That was the answer to all those things. You'd go file, you spend $15, you'd go file an assumed name certificate in Austin that said 1515 Brown was attached as the assumed name of Bubba LLC. Mm-hmm. Until it got a point in time where you just did that all the time because it was just easier. You just told your clients when you were giving the quote for a series, we're going to do this, and every time we do a series, by the way, it's going to cost you another $15 to do the assumed name. Right? That just made life easier for everybody. And so you cleared that problem. So then finally, let's see, this is 2023. So 2021, as a legislative session, we finally said, well, let's kind of solve that problem statutorily. So they came up with these new terms called protected and registered series. And now you have the capability of physically filing a document in Austin to register your series. You can let the world know that this series was part of an LLC. It kind of overcame the DBA thing, which I thought was fabulous. It was just great. Until the Secretary of State, in its own power, it had the power to do that, decided what the filing fee would be to register your series. So when I first read the statute, I'm thinking, what, $25? Maybe $50 if they're really greedy?
$350?
It's $300. $300.
That's an LLC.
That's an LLC. Exactly. Yeah. That's an LLC filing. Why am I paying $300 to register this series? If for $300, I can just go form another LLC.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, that's just crazy. And I know this is like, well, it's $300. Everyone's going to go register. Not $300. We're not. Drop it down to 50, and you're going to make more money as a state if you dropped it to 50.
Yeah.
Yep.
Right? Because I can convince my guy who has 15 series, let's go register him for $50 a pop. I mean, it's still a lot of money, but they're going to go on. But to tell them, let's go register your 15 series at $300 a pop, they're going to ask me if I shouldn't be retiring early, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're just not going to figure that out. And so once again, those who do not practice screwed this up, right? I mean, it just doesn't make any sense. I mean, the series statute could be so wonderful in Texas. It can be so beneficial to not only real estate people, but business people in Texas if it was just drafted correctly. But for the life of me, we just can't get them there.
Yeah.
It's just frustrating.
Do you recommend like the two company structure where you have holding here and then an operating company on the other side?
I don't. It is,
Or does that really
if
matter?
somebody wants to, so that's a great question. So I get people who call and go, I need anonymity. I want anonymity, and in Texas that's tough to do, right? Because if you're going to form something, your name's going to be at the Secretary of State's side. If you're the manager or the member, whichever way you decide to form your LLC, your name's at the Secretary of State's side. So when people go, I want anonymity. First of all, I ask them, what do you want anonymity for? What exactly are you running for? If they got a good reason, I'm okay with that. But they go, because if I get sued, I don't want that mean attorney to find me. I go, have you ever been to a deposition? Do you know what post-judgment discovery is? Do you know what they can ask you for? Everything. Do you think that you can hide the fact that you own this entity from a mean litigator? No. Now, if you want to have anonymity to make it more difficult for people to find you, like years ago, I had a great client, had a lot of properties, and his 14-year-old came to dinner one day after he had gone to the Denton County Appraisal District and printed out all these properties that his dad owned and put it on the dinner table and said, Dad, I didn't know you owned all these properties. This is incredible. And the next day he called me and said, I never want this to happen again. Gotcha. Right? Anonymity was important to him for a reason that made sense to him, right?
Yeah.
So, you got to go form something else to hide your name in Texas, right? I mean, you go to Wyoming or wherever you feel comfortable with. I enjoy Wyoming. It was the mother of the limited liability company statute, as strange as it sounds, right? Wyoming was the first state to have a limited liability company. Some guy riding around on a horse with his buddy going, you know what? We need something easier than a corporation. Yeah, let's do something. Right? I got a cousin in the legislature. Let's form something simpler than a corporation, right? 4 guys in Wyoming, which at the time was the population, said, yeah, let's pass the limited liability company statute. Then boom, Texas also, the same guys who had cousins in Texas, the 4 guys on the horse went, that's a good idea. Did you see what cousin Brett did in Wyoming? Let's do it here in Texas. So Texas became number 4, right? And so Wyoming's great because there you have anonymity. You can form a Wyoming company and nothing is publicly shown. Mm-hmm. So if I have somebody who really, really wants anonymity, and they really have to convince me they want to spend the money, we'll form a Wyoming company and then name that Wyoming company as the manager of the series here in Texas.
Yeah.
So Bubba LLC is a managed, run Wyoming entity, right? And then the members are secret. So if they want anonymity, that's fine, right? But if someone says to me, I want to have an LLC that owns all my property, and then I want a separate LLC that is the property manager, right? Mm-hmm. Then I say to them, well, I understand this. As much as I dislike telling you this and as much as I disagree with this regulation, the Texas Real Estate Commission is adamant that if you form a company to be a property management company, even if you are managing only your properties, you have to have a broker sponsor. I don't think many people know that. I think it's the craziest rule in the world. But even if you manage your own properties, TREC says you have to have a broker sponsor within that entity. Now, you can manage your own properties that are owned by an LLC by yourself. But if you go form an entity, a second entity to be the property management company, you have to have a sponsor broker. You know how many people out there have LLCs that are their property management company? They have no brokers. I mean, if TREC wanted to get rich, I guess they could go after all of them. I don't know how TREC ever finds out unless somebody complains, but
it's the MLSs that are getting rich.
Yeah,
we own a brokerage, and I'm like,
yeah.
It's those MLSs. Right. Yeah. So if you form a second entity, then that second entity has to have
a broker sponsor. If you're using it as a property manager, yeah. And to be honest with you, I didn't know that for a long time until there was an argument on.
I didn't know that. I never. I mean, we own a brokerage. We've never heard that.
There was an argument on Facebook. What did we do without Facebook from a group standpoint, right? I belong to the Texas Lawyers Real Estate Group, and this was a heavy discussion. And it came out that, Trek's step position is that even if you are managing your own property, but you form an entity, you've got to have a sponsor broker. And I know that I gave, advice to people long ago that wasn't the case. So there's a lot of people, I know there's lots of people out there who have formed that second company to be a property management company, but don't have a sponsor.
Well, law changes. I mean, right?
And
That's
it does.
why they call it practice law. You practice medicine, you practice law, you practice.
There's no question.
Because you're not. It's
You're
may
not
be
set in stone.
you may be an expert in what you're doing,
Right.
but
Right.
even as an expert, you still
Right.
are having to learn. And then one day you go, okay, I'm not practicing anymore, which
Right.
means
Yeah.
I'm no longer having to go pay
Right.
attention to those things.
Yeah,
so.
when I stop practicing law is probably the day in which I'm probably sitting on my front porch reading a book because I'm not doing anything, right? Because it does change. It changes all the time, which makes it what makes what we do is exciting, right? There's always something that needs to change or fix, or they're coming up with some new ideas. I mean, 2007, I never thought about the series, never knew what that was.
Yeah.
Even though 9 other states in the union had them, all of a sudden here comes this concept that was going to change the world for real estate investors, and it did. It has. It's made so much life so much better for them and to do. So, so the series I think is still the way to go in a lot of cases. I know there's attorneys out there who don't like them. They think it's easier to just form single LLCs each time, and because they've been tested and they know what that is. But I've always said, listen, we don't need the courts to tell us the main purpose of a series. The statute says that. Statute clearly says that as a limited liability company, you can create these. And here's how people call me and go, can you describe an LLC? I go, yeah, I can. You form an ocean liner called Bubba LLC. And when you send the paperwork to Austin to form this ocean liner, you're telling them in this paperwork that my ocean liner is going to have an unlimited number of watertight compartments in it, in this ocean liner. And they're called a series. And the statute says each one of those watertight compartments can have its own assets and liabilities. And if one of those watertight compartments leaks, meaning there's a claim, it has no impact on the LLC or the ocean liner or the other watertight compartments. The statute says that. I don't need a court to tell me that. The statute says that. Right? Now, the proper way of creating that watertight compartment, that's maybe what we eventually need a court to tell us, right? Because how we name them, you will find a billion different ways to name your series, how you set it up. Now, we do have some guidance now. Like, so if you want to register your series, the statute says how they want it named. Perfect. But again, I'm not paying $300 just so that I match Bob's series down the street. Bob the attorney. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
Please bring it down to $5. If anyone from the States listening to this, $50, guys. Come on, be reasonable, right? Still very popular. Still, I think if you are a multifamily property owner, Now, let me just quickly say, if you have one, don't call me about forming a series because I won't do it for you. I won't.
Not ready for it.
Right? You're not ready, right? Because let's talk about the reality of things. If you own a single family home as a landlord, what are the ways you're going to get in trouble? Trip and fall. Right? That's the one way people always think, trip and fall. Well, if you own 1, 2, and you've said to yourself, I hate this. I inherited these 2 properties. I'm keeping them, but I'm never going to buy any more. I say to you, then go buy the largest umbrella policy that you can afford. $1 million, $2 million umbrella policy, because that's going to cover trip and falls for you. Right? Now, the second way is a tenant gets mad at you. Right? You haven't returned a security deposit. There's mold, whatever. I said, okay, that's potentially where the risk takes place. Now, make darn sure your house doesn't have mold. And if you get into a dispute with your tenant about security deposit, be businesslike and determine if it's worth the battle. Again, a $1,200 security deposit isn't probably worth $4,000 in legal fees. Probably not worth going ahead and forming a bunch of series and stuff just for that issue. Just settle the thing with the tenant and move on. Right? Because it's what you guys do as a business. What we as attorneys should advise it from a business perspective, not only a legal perspective. Right? We shouldn't be so black and white that say, oh, no, you got to go sue. You don't if it's not going to be economically advantageous to you. So if you own 1 or 2, I'm not sure there's a reason why. But if you say to me, I own 1 or 2 and I love this and I'm going to buy more, then let's get you set up now.
Yeah. My mom would always be like, I don't want someone to die in the property. It was death. That was hers. Because we owned stuff with them together. And they're like, I don't want to, it was never a trip and fall. It was, I don't want someone to die in there. I'm worried they're going to die in there.
Right. Yeah.
I'm like, Mom, we're fine.
Yeah.
Like,
So
it's gonna happen.
so that's so I still like them. I wish we would do something with them. And again, I look forward to your emails, counsel,
Yeah.
who want to argue with me about my position. And
Well, man, I loved having you on. You've
Thanks.
got fantastic stories.
Appreciate it.
I think one of the things I love is that you touched on, and we didn't touch on. I really wanted to let you ride out because I was like, I love the stories, and so like, and before we kind of bow out here, I wanted to say like you basically went 18, 20 years before you went back to what you wanted to do.
Right.
And it's like for the beginning, like you said, hey, where a lot of people be like, oh, I'm in my late 30s. I'm 38 right now. I mean, I'm probably around the same age somewhere. It sounds like you were
Right.
in that journey, and some people won't stop. They're like, well, I'm 38 or I'm 39 or
It's
I'm
too
40.
late past
I'm
my prime.
Misty's 41, like, I'm about to be 42. It's too late. Like, I'm just gonna whatever, versus you said, no, I'm gonna make that jump. And I think that's something that's really valuable, to kind of, circle back to, as wrapping it up, is like that it's so valuable because most people won't do that and they'll just go, yeah, I'm done. But you were like, no, and I'm sure, and had you not done it, life would have been totally different.
Yeah.
But because you did, life is way different
Right.
and probably, way more prosperous and better for you and the family because you went through that period of, I would have guessed, 5 years or so that was
Starting over.
starting
Right.
over,
Yeah.
starting over. But there's a small amount of life of start over compared to the amount of life that you've
Yeah.
had and lived. So I
That's
love that.
Never too late.
Never too late.
Never
I
too
love that. Man, you want to share how anyone can get a hold of you if they have any questions or,
The website for the law firm is as easy as it sounds. The Law Firm, so spelled out, The Law Firm, and then the letters MC from MeyerColegrove.com. So thelawfirmmc.com is the website. At the website, there's a scheduling app on there. You can schedule a consultation. It's for me. My partner takes them by phone, but rarely needs consultations. But you can go on and schedule a consultation. There you can pick day, time, and format, office, phone, or Zoom. We still do Zoom. We like Zoom. Telephone number for the firm is 972-810-0161, and it's 972-810-0161. And then my personal email is obviously the website at the Law Firm MC, and then it's just M, my first initial, Colegrove, Colegrove. Don't forget that first E because I can't have more than one wife, so I don't want to have to marry anyone to get that correct. So that'll get you to me, and I'm happy to visit with anyone. Like I say, I love new people in the marketplace, and if they just want to visit, give me a call.
Well, I love it, man. Well, thank you very much,
Sure,
Milt, for coming on. It was great stories. Learned a lot. I know anyone who listens to this will definitely
Appreciate it.
learn a lot too as well. So,
Thanks.
and I hope to have you back on another time. And that's it, guys. And we'll catch you guys next time.